Playing dumb is rarely about deception. It usually begins as patience disguised as indifference. In everyday life, it looks unremarkable. Nods instead of arguments, shrugs instead of explanations, letting conversations drift without correcting every wrong assumption. On the surface, it reads as passivity. Underneath, it is restraint sharpened by observation. While others rush to display intelligence, strategy, or dominance, the quiet one gathers data. Patterns repeat. Behaviors stay consistent. Weaknesses announce themselves without realizing it. The world rewards noise, so people mistake silence for lack of awareness. That mistake becomes comfortable. Comfort breeds carelessness. In that space, information flows freely toward the one who appears least threatening. This is not genius. It is human nature. Most people reveal more when they believe no one is paying attention. Playing dumb lowers defenses. It invites honesty from those who think they are safe. The cold move comes later not as revenge, but as inevitability. By the time it happens, the groundwork has already been laid quietly, patiently, without spectacle. The psychology behind this is simple. People perform when they feel watched. They relax when they feel superior. Playing dumb grants others that feeling. It lets them talk. It lets them boast. It lets them underestimate. Over time, underestimation becomes a habit. That habit blinds. Decisions get sloppy. Words get careless. Promises get broken openly because consequences feel unlikely. This is where the mind of the observer stays calm. No emotional reaction leaks out. No corrections interrupt the flow. The role of the fool is played convincingly, not through exaggeration, but through restraint. The absence of challenge creates a false sense of control for everyone else in the room. Control feels intoxicating. It dulls awareness. That dullness is what gets shattered later, not by volume or drama, but by one precise action that reveals how much was seen all along. The cold move never arrives loudly. Instead, it lands cleanly, often framed as routine. A decision executed, a boundary enforced, a truth stated plainly without emotion. The shock does not come from aggression. It comes from contrast. The mind struggles to reconcile the image it built with the reality now standing in front of it. That dissonance hurts. Psychologically, it feels like betrayal even though nothing was promised. The betrayal is internal. Expectations collapse. The brain scrambles to rewrite the narrative. The quiet one was never clueless. The signals were misread. The silence was misjudged. That realization cracks confidence. People can handle being outplayed. What they struggle with is realizing they were never playing the same game. The cold move breaks the illusion of superiority instantly. There is something deeply unsettling about discovering that someone knew more than they let on. It triggers paranoia. Conversations get replayed. Small moments get re-examined. The mind starts searching for clues it missed. This backward scanning is exhausting. It creates obsession, self-doubt, and embarrassment. The cold move does not need to be repeated. Its impact lingers because it forces reevaluation of the entire relationship. Every interaction feels suspect now. Trust in one's own judgment erodes. That erosion is what breaks the mind, not the action itself. The action is simple. The consequences are complex. This is why restraint feels dangerous. It allows others to build their own traps. Playing dumb also protects energy. Instead of arguing every misinterpretation, energy is saved for decisive moments. Arguments drain without changing outcomes. Observation costs little and pays heavily later. The cold move feels effortless because the work was done beforehand. This is why it feels unfair to those on the receiving end. They confuse fairness with visibility. They assume effort must look like struggle. When no struggle was visible, they assume none existed. The shock comes from realizing how wrong that assumption was. The mind resists this realization because it implies personal error. Admitting error hurts more than losing. Stories across life follow this pattern. In workplaces, the quiet colleague suddenly makes a move that reshapes power dynamics. In friendships, the one who never argued finally walks away without explanation. In families, the one who tolerated everything sets a firm boundary that changes everything overnight. The reaction is always the same: confusion, anger, attempts to regain control. None of those work because the move already happened. The playing dumb phase made people comfortable. Comfort delayed reaction. Delay made the move irreversible. The brilliance of the cold move lies in its simplicity. It does not over-explain. It does not justify itself. It stands on its own. The lack of emotional display amplifies its effect. Emotions would have softened it. Calm makes it absolute. Psychologically, calm signals certainty. Certainty shuts down negotiation. That is why the aftermath feels final. People sense there is no room to argue. The door closed quietly. No slam. No warning. Just absence of access. Many misunderstand this dynamic and try to imitate it through manipulation. That fails. Playing dumb only works when it is rooted in self-control, not deceit. Self-control allows patience. Patience allows clarity. Clarity guides timing. Timing determines impact. Skip any of these and the move loses power. The cold move is not about hurting others. It is about ending a dynamic that no longer serves. The break in their mind comes from realizing the dynamic existed only because it was allowed. After the move, silence returns, but it feels different. This silence carries weight. It is no longer mistaken for ignorance. It is recognized as choice. Choice commands respect, even if it breeds resentment. The story shifts. The quiet one becomes unpredictable. Unpredictability unsettles people who relied on patterns to feel safe. That unsettled feeling lingers long after the moment passes. The quiet one becomes unpredictable the moment expectations stop working. Predictability lives on repetition. It survives on patterns being honored again and again until everyone relaxes into them. The quiet figure disrupts this by refusing to signal intent in advance. No verbal rehearsal. No obvious build-up. Days pass normally. Conversations feel ordinary. Then something shifts without announcement. A decision lands clean and final. The shock does not come from the action itself, but from the absence of warning. Minds rely on cues to prepare. When cues vanish, certainty collapses. Unpredictability enters like cold air through an open door, unnoticed until the room is already chilled. That chill spreads because it removes the ability to plan around someone. Planning creates safety. When planning fails, anxiety takes over. The quiet one does not threaten. Threats are predictable. The quiet one acts without explanation. That absence of narrative feels dangerous because it cannot be managed. Stories need context. Silence offers none. In everyday scenes, this unpredictability unsettles people who rely on emotional patterns to stay oriented. The colleague who always explains suddenly stops. The friend who always listens withdraws calmly. The family member who tolerated everything finally declines without guilt. Nothing about these actions is dramatic. The drama lives in the confusion that follows. Minds scramble to update old assumptions. The problem is that assumptions were never confirmed, only reinforced through habit. When habit breaks, interpretation fails. The quiet one no longer fits the role assigned to them. Roles keep relationships stable. When a role disappears, the system shakes. Unpredictability feels like betrayal to those who depended on that role for comfort. There is a specific kind of fear tied to unpredictability. It is not fear of harm. It is fear of losing influence. Influence depends on knowing how someone will react. Silence removes reaction data. Without data, influence weakens. This is why unpredictability feels threatening even in harmless situations. It exposes how much control was assumed, not earned. The quiet one never announced a change. The change simply happened. That subtlety makes it harder to confront. No argument can be had with absence. No blame can be assigned cleanly. The discomfort lingers because there is no clear villain to point at, just a shifting dynamic that no longer responds to pressure. Stories often frame unpredictability as chaos. In reality, it often comes from discipline. Discipline limits expression. It delays reaction. It prioritizes timing over impulse. The quiet one becomes unpredictable because decisions are made internally long before they appear externally. Observers mistake this delay for indecision. When action finally occurs, it feels sudden. That suddenness rattles confidence. Confidence depends on foresight. When foresight fails, panic fills the gap. Panic leads to overcorrection, second-guessing, and reactive behavior. All of this happens without a single word being spoken by the quiet figure. Unpredictability also changes how past interactions are remembered. Old conversations get re-examined under a new lens. Comments once dismissed as harmless now feel calculated. Silences that meant nothing now feel loaded. The mind retroffs its meaning because it needs coherence. This backward rewriting is exhausting. It creates the sense that something was missed, something important slipped by unnoticed. That feeling erodes trust in one's own judgment. The quiet one does not need to gaslight anyone. Reality does the work. The unpredictability alone destabilizes certainty. In social environments, predictability equals comfort. The quiet one disrupts complacency by refusing to confirm expectations. That refusal forces adaptation. Some adapt by becoming cautious. Others adapt by becoming defensive. Both responses reveal vulnerability. Vulnerability was always present. Predictability just hid it. Once removed, everything feels exposed. This exposure is where resentment often grows. Not because harm occurred, but because comfort was revoked without consent. The quiet one becomes the symbol of that discomfort. Even if no harm was intended, there is also a strange respect that grows around unpredictability. Not admiration, but distance. Distance born from uncertainty. People tread more carefully. Words are chosen with more care. Assumptions are held back. The environment subtly reorganizes itself around the quiet presence. This shift feels eerie because no authority was claimed. Authority emerged naturally from restraint. The quiet one does not chase validation. That lack of need communicates strength in a language older than words. Strength without display unsettles those who rely on display to feel secure. Unpredictability also protects boundaries. When reactions cannot be predicted, probing becomes risky. Manipulation relies on testing and adjusting based on response. Silence blocks that feedback loop. Without feedback, manipulation loses accuracy. Attempts feel clumsy. Over time, attempts slow down or stop altogether. The quiet one becomes difficult to read, not because of secrecy, but because of self-containment. Self-containment is rare. Rare things attract attention and caution simultaneously. That combination creates a quiet form of power. The longer unpredictability persists, the more it reshapes relationships. Some connections fade naturally. Others recalibrate on healthier terms. Those that depended on predictability crumble. Those that respect autonomy survive. This sorting happens without confrontation. Silence does the sorting quietly. The quiet one does not explain the change. Explanation would restore predictability. The absence of explanation preserves it.